Right now we're going to head back outside to Route 35 where a chemical train collision happened last night. Our Matthew Hilk is standing by live with all the latest. Matthew.
Amy, some new information on the investigation here. We're going to check in here live with Mike Martino, the lead investigator from the National Transportation Safety Board. Understand the next couple of hours will be very busy. How so?
Yes, sir. We're going to be interviewing the surviving crew members of the train that struck the coal train, also the coal train crew.
Have you recovered the so-called black box, the recordings?
Not at this time. The wreckage has been extensive, and we're right now in the process of getting the black box from the second unit. The first unit will be questionable because of the type of damage incurred.
You said there were a couple of possible scenarios here you were telling me earlier. What are they?
Well, there's several, and again, it's highly speculative. I really don't want to go into that right now.
Okay, but of course you're checking, of course, on the signals there as to why the trains were so close and the one train was stopped. Do you know if it was a signal or a human error, or could have been either?
Everything's possible at this point. We don't know just yet. We've not been able to get into the signal compartment there for the signal itself, as well as talk to the crew.
Okay, thanks a lot. Back to you, Amy.
Okay, thanks very much, Matthew, and we'll have the latest on that story tonight at 11. Good night, everyone.
Associated Press Best Newscast. You're watching WCHS-TV News 8, Charleston's news leader. Now, live from the state capitol, you're watching News 8 Night Desk.
Federal investigators get their first clues about what happened in last night's train collision, including new information on a third train in the area during the time of that accident. Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Schuler. Thanks for joining us. Well, the emergency is over and the shelter has been lifted, but the work of figuring out that deadly chemical train collision has just begun. Federal investigators are hard at work tonight gathering clues in the deadly crash of a chemical and coal train crash in Putnam County. Our News 8's Matthew Hilk has been covering the story from the beginning and is live near the scene. Matthew, what's happening out there right now?
Well, Amy, for the first time in more than 24 hours, Route 35 is actually open nearly all the way to the crash site. But as you can see down the road here, traffic is still completely cut off near Ventura Road. That is because that fire is still burning and federal investigators are still working. Meantime, people in this area have been allowed to return home. Some are coming home and others are just staying away. Got to go home, but only stayed long enough to pick up Sadie and Oreo. They may have been the first witnesses to the wreck.
It was scared the hell out of them, but when the train hit, they moved the house. So it felt like moved the house about 3 inches on the blocks.
People of Ventura Hollow were allowed home, but firefighters kept everyone else out, so investigators with the NTSB could examine wreckage. CSX now says the engineer, 31-year-old Kelvin Winters, was killed when a chemical tanker train rear-ended a stopped coal train. The NTSB spent the evening talking to surviving crew members, trying to figure out why two trains on the same track got so close.
It's unusual because here you have a signal system employed.
But Martino says that signal either malfunctioned or was ignored. That's why NTSB workers are recovering the train's black box.
It'll tell us the last manipulations of what the engineer had performed in this train, the throttle setting, the direction of the train, the brakes, the dynamic brakes, if they were applied or not.
We also now know that a third train barely avoided the crash, and that it was the workers on that third train that pulled at least one of the injured from the wreckage. We are back here live on Route 35, a road that officials tell us will be closed for an indefinite period of time. And again, they want to stress to us that while people are allowed back in their homes on Ventura Road, traffic is not open for people who want to visit people in those homes on Ventura Road. So still, this is an area to stay away from. Amy.
Matthew, how do we know if that area is safe if the fire's still burning, though?
Air quality tests were performed earlier today, so the air is in fact safe here. But again, gas is still venting from that small fire which keeps igniting there on the train. So technically the fire is still burning, but officials say there is no hazard in the air here. Back to you.
Okay, thanks very much. Our Matthew Hilk reporting live from Putnam County tonight. Now, of course, we do have some more details on this train accident. One of the trains was carrying tankers of different chemicals, but the only one which caught fire was transporting acetaldehyde, a colorless flammable liquid. Authorities say that about 10,000 gallons of the chemical burned and it will be able to burn itself out. Officials, however, do say that there is no danger from the fire or any fumes. Hundreds of homes were evacuated and many others warned to shelter in place before that warning was lifted this afternoon. Well, the shelter in place may be lifted for residents along Ventura Road, but that doesn't mean life is back to normal for those folks. More than 100 residents were forced to flee. Dozens more were forced to shelter in their homes following last night's collision and fire. Many residents are upset that there's only one way in and one way out of the hollow. And because of that, some people were forced to crawl underneath the train to safety.
And there was nobody there to help us. Nobody. There was no rescue people, no fire department, no anything to help us underneath that train. These elderly people had to crawl under there by themselves.
Robertson says if there were another access road for Ventura Road, everyone would be able to get out without crawling underneath the train. Authorities have now released the names of the man killed and one of those injured. 31-year-old Kelvin Winters was killed in the collision. He was based in Russell, Kentucky with CSX. Officials have not confirmed the name of his hometown as of yet. Another CSX worker from Kentucky was injured in the crash. 27-year-old
Many people re-examining safety at cash machines. News 8's Matthew Hilk has been checking out security measures at machines here and is live in Charleston tonight. Matthew, are the machines safe here?
Russ, generally from what we found around here, most do seem to be pretty safe. Most seem to be pretty well lighted, like this one here on Washington Street on Charleston's East End. But police in this city, though, say even if the machine setting an area is safe, you need to stay safe.
Eric Snyder doesn't mind taking out a few bucks with the protection of our TV camera. But Snyder says normally he'd see an ATM like this one and keep on walking.
Well, I don't feel safe over here. I mean, I know there's some alleys back there that we just walked past. And over here, I mean, somebody could definitely sneak up on you.
ATM safety has been on more people's minds after a New York executive's son was tortured for his PIN number, then murdered for $800 at this bank in Manhattan. Raymond Bardwell, who came here from neighboring New Jersey, says he won't even use a walk-up ATM.
My biggest fear when I'm using an ATM machine is someone's looking over my shoulder and trying to get my PIN.
Police say they've even heard of cases of crooks using high-powered binoculars to zoom in on PIN numbers so they can catch up with victims minutes later. That's why police say it's very important to stand in front of the keypad as you make your ATM transaction.
Always never walk away from a machine with a lot of money in your hand, your receipt. Don't start counting your money as you're walking away. Just put it in your pocket and go on about your business.
Snodgrass says he doesn't know of any serious ATM-related robberies here recently. He says most machines in Charleston are well-lighted and very visible. Some banks, like Sean Barnett's, even protect from robberies with a $100 a day limit.
It wasn't worth losing my life over.
And back here live on Charleston's East End, police have some other tips. Make sure you can see all the way around the ATM machine that you use, like the one here. They say if in fact you're using a drive-up ATM like this one, be sure to keep your doors and windows locked during the transaction. Russ.
All right, Matthew, suppose the worst does happen and you are confronted by a robber. What do police advise you do?
Yeah, police say no question there. If it should come down to that, they say give the robbers what they want, give them the money. They say no amount of money from an ATM is worth your life, Russ.
Good point. Matthew Hilk live tonight in Charleston. Well, the March floods are a bad memory.
Alerts are a public service of Missing Kids International.
This is a News 8 special report.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Schuler.
This has been a News 8.
Tonight, 2 tankers collided near Ventro. At least 1 person has been reported dead. Several others are injured. News 8 has been live from the scene of that crash since it happened nearly 3 hours ago. And our News 8's Matthew Hilk joins us now live with the latest. Matthew, do we now know what chemicals were in that tanker?
Amy, we do. That is the most important information to come our way in several hours now. Now, bear with us here. This is, of course, chemical information. A little hard to follow, but we want to tell you exactly what's going on. Now, as we told you earlier, the accident involved 2 trains, one carrying coal, another carrying chemicals. The biggest concern on the chemical train is 3 tanker cars. Car number 7 carrying a chemical called acetaldehyde. We are told that that is a flammable, poisonous industrial liquid. Car number 8 carrying sulfuric acid. Car number 9 carrying hydrogen peroxide. That chemical is one reason that firefighters cannot pour water on this fire, which is why it continues to burn at this hour. What we do want to stress that this is not a toxic fire at this point. What firefighters and state troopers believe is on fire at this point are diesel fuel and auto parts on the other cars of the train. So what this is a potential for a very toxic fire, but at this point not a toxic fire. We are told by a state police spokesperson that the incident commander here is considering a full evacuation of the area, and by the area we're talking about an area 1.5 mile radius around where it happened, near Route 35, the Ventura area. We're going to take a look down the road here. We're going to show you the scene right now. What you see over here in the distance is a school bus. Bus is being used to take people out of the most affected areas. In all, about 100 families affected by evacuations or a shelter in place. A number of fire trucks, state police troopers having been on the scene for several hours now, both to control the traffic here, to help with the rescues, to help with the firefighting efforts. Again, we want to recap. After 3 hours, we finally have some information about the chemicals on board that train. They are acetaldehyde, a flammable poisonous liquid, sulfuric acid, and hydrogen peroxide. None of them is on fire at this point, but that is the main concern. We're told by the state police spokesperson that shifting wind is a very big concern right now. Fighting that fire, of course, a very big concern. We also have confirmation from state police of one fatality on board that train. We don't know who that person is. We don't know what their function was on that train or how they're connected to the accident. We don't know how many people have been injured outside of that just a moment ago. We did see one injured person being taken off the scene in an ambulance. So there have been a number of injuries, but we haven't gotten solid information on how many injuries there are and what they are. But again, if you're not in the affected area, which is the 1.5 mile area around here, from the Ventura area where it happened to Bills Creek and the other half of the radius on the other side, you don't have too much to worry about at this point. Amy.
Matthew, I would imagine that if some of the family members were wanting to get in touch with people, traffic may be a situation down in that area.
Traffic is most certainly a situation. In fact, they just had to land a helicopter here recently to help illuminate the area, help in the firefighting effort. So they continue to tell us that this is not an area that you want to be in at this point, but it's a little bit less of a situation than it was when we were on the scene first a few hours ago. Some vehicles going in and out, mainly emergency vehicles, but the traffic situation pretty well in hand. We'll show you where we are to put some perspective on it. We are on Route 35. You can see over here, that is the entrance to St. Albans exit of I-64, and of course all parts of 35. We take a look down the road here, John. You can see a state police cruiser blocking the road there on the north end, headed toward Point Pleasant and Winfield there on Route 35. We swing around here to the south end, traffic blocked on the other side as well. You can take a look down here. You can see the main staging area for the firefighters, well illuminated down there. Their main thing right now is, of course, they're plotting how to fight this fire, a fire that they can't put water on in parts, and a fire affected by shifting winds. But again, to recap, we know the chemicals. They are 3 very toxic chemicals, potential for a very toxic fire, but not a toxic fire at this point. Amy.
Okay, we appreciate that live report tonight from our Matthew Hilk in Putnam County. Thanks very much, Matthew. Well, some of those folks that have been evacuated from their homes, some of them we now know have been taken to Eastbrook Elementary on Bills Creek and the west side at the Volunteer Fire Department. So if you need to get in touch with your family members or friends that live in that area, some of them will be at those places. And of course, we'll have more information on this crash just as soon as it becomes available to us.
This has been a News 8 special report. We now join our regularly scheduled program already in progress.
When disaster struck, News 8 was there.
A train derails near Route 35 in Ventura.
With the first live pictures.
What you're seeing is a breaking situation unfolding right here. We are being moved back along with
information you needed to know.
Right now, the situation is growing more and more serious.
We asked the tough questions.
Anything, we've got people who want to know what's going on here.
And continued our live coverage throughout the late night hours. When news breaks,
8 on your side delivers.
Your four-wheel drive headquarters in Huntington.
Winner, Associated Press Best Newscast. You're watching WCHS-TV News 8, Charleston's news leader.
Anti-smoking forces and tobacco companies reach a historic $360 billion settlement. Charleston's new Capital Market is officially open. We'll look at what impact it could have on other downtown businesses. And it's West Virginia's 134th birthday. We're going to show you how folks are celebrating. News 8 at 6 is next.
Now, live from the state capitol, you're watching News 8 at 6.
Things may never be the same for smokers in America. An unprecedented settlement over tobacco lawsuits will mean unprecedented restrictions on cigarettes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mary Sue Jackson. It's a fundamental change in the way our nation would look at cigarettes, cigarette companies, and even smokers. The landmark deal was reached late this afternoon. It's a settlement between states like West Virginia and the tobacco companies to end lawsuits. News 8's Matthew Hilk has been following these talks for weeks and is live now at the state capitol. Matthew, what does this settlement mean for us?
Mary Sue, it's considered a big victory for West Virginia because this was one of the very first states to actually sue tobacco companies to try to recover health care costs due to tobacco. But this is not just about officials and attorneys here at the state capitol. This could change everything about where you find cigarettes, where you find smokers, and where you find advertising. Looking at the details now, this is a $360 million deal between 40 states and the major companies. The first thing you'd probably see are blaring new warning labels that would say things like tobacco kills. Now, tobacco companies would actually have to contribute money for medical programs and anti-smoking campaigns. Things like the Marlboro Man and Joe Camel would be history with major new restrictions on advertising. And although the two sides did reach that agreement today, Congress still needs to approve that, and that is not guaranteed. Now, additionally, the settlement calls for bans on smoking in virtually all public places. It would make cigarettes less visible in stores and could eliminate vending machines. Now, here is a biggie. Ultimately, the Food and Drug Administration would eventually be able to regulate nicotine as a drug. Now, the lead attorney, the lead litigator for West Virginia on the tobacco issue has praised the agreement. In talking to Deborah McHenry in recent days, she says that West Virginia is getting much more out of a settlement like this than it would ever get in the form of money if it were to continue trying to sue the tobacco companies on its own. Mary Sue.
So, Matt, what will the tobacco companies get out of this agreement?
Well, the companies get the one major thing they've been looking for, and that is protection from certain types of lawsuit damages. In other words, sick smokers would no longer be able to recover punitive damages from tobacco companies, but they would be able to recover some types of damages for medical costs. Mary Sue.
Okay, thanks a lot. Matthew Hilk reporting live tonight from the state capitol. Plumbers installing a